Thank you so much. We are live. Hello, YouTube. Good morning. Good morning. Good election day to you. Welcome to the Lurie Daniel Favors Show Experience, where we here at Urban View, channel 126 on SiriusXM, open up our doors a little bit to allow you all to come on in and join us because we got a lot to get to. And today is an election day. And it really, really matters because everything we care about is on the ballot. And I want to be crystal clear about this because I know we still have some of y'all's cousins, not our cousins, but them other people's cousins who don't believe that elections are that important, who probably are still wondering, why are you making such a big deal about the election? I'm so glad you asked, Cletus. I'm going to let you know right now why we care about elections, because everything is on the ballot. Hunger is extraordinarily political. And if you did not know that hunger was political, just ask any of the 42 million Americans right now who ain't got no food in their cupboards because your president decided that he and the Republican Party were going to be some stingy-ass bastards who not going to give them the money, even though the courts order them to give them the money, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But hunger is on the ballot. Your ability to eat food is on the ballot. Your ability to have a job and gainful employment is on the ballot. There are, 500,000 black people who are no longer employed, who this time last year were gainfully employed. Experts in their field heading up the track to senior management, probably mid-level management, because of the racism was going to have a whole lot of white people that these black people trained, then get in positions where they had to report to them. But that happens on a regular basis. It happens on every day ending in Y. But the ability to have a job is on the ballot. And considering the fact that politics is just the science of how we distribute the resources, I thought it would be important for us to remind ourselves about how significant these ballot initiatives, these candidates actually are. And so we've got elections happening right now in New York, in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, in California, in Virginia. California, I'm really going to need y'all to vote yes on Prop 50. I don't know what else is on your ballot, but Prop 50 is basically the legislation that would allow for you to engage in redistricting in a different way, because we got to handle what's happening with all the Republicans. The Republicans have decided they're going to cheat their way to glory. And so what they have done is redistricted when they're not supposed to. We've talked about that extensively. Not going to get into that so much today, but California, you have an opportunity because of your size and population to make sure that you can be a guard against all of the fascism that these folks are trying to usher in. And so I'm going to need y'all to vote yes on Prop 50. And I want to talk a little bit about this because we're in a situation where things need to be very, very simple. They need to be very, very clear. And we have a person in the presidency who wants to be a king. We know that he wants to be a king because when y'all was out there doing that No Kings protest, he was sending AI images and videos of himself flying a plane with the crown on his head, dumping shit all over everybody. All the American citizens. I don't think that got enough coverage, but that's what happened. So this man definitely sees himself as a king. He's already said he plans to be a dictator on day 1. He didn't say what's going to happen on day 2 through all the rest of the days, because we know that being a dictator is sort of how he rolls. Now, when you have a dictator, when you have a king, governing is pretty simple. It's not very complicated at all. So when there's a question about whether or not you're going to get a school, well, what did the king say? What did the dictator say? Did the dictator say you could have a school? If the dictator or the king said you could have a school, then sure, you can have a school. When it comes to whether or not you're going to get a hospital, when you have a king, this is not that complicated. You don't have to do legislation. You don't really have to do negotiations. It's just, did the king think that you need a hospital or not? Did the dictator say that, yeah, you can have a hospital, or did they not? And if you said you could get a hospital, then yes, you can get a hospital. But if they didn't like you and they said you could not get a hospital, well, then no, you're not going to get a hospital. Now, the thing about dictators and kings is that what you can often do is, while you don't have like a body of Congress to negotiate with, you can pay them like what Mark Zuckerberg does. Or Jeff Bezos, or the people who run all the AI data centers. You can just pay money to the king or the dictator, the wannabe king or dictator, and then that will allow you to get your needs met, or at least not have the king looking at you sideways. And so that's what we have happening in America right now, where you have very wealthy people who are paying to get what they want done, even if it has nothing to do with what the needs of the people are. That's how things function in a monarchy, which is where you have a king or a queen, or a dictatorship. Now, if you have a democracy, and I want to be crystal clear here, these are not the only forms of government. Frankly, before we had the great Ma'afa, the disruption of African achievement and advancement, we had a variety of ways, indigenously speaking, a variety of ways of choosing leadership and making leadership decisions that often centered not the needs just of men, but also incorporated very strongly the preferences and the needs of women and the mandates of women. And so I don't want to act like you can only have a king/dictator or a democracy. And like even the idea of limiting ourselves to socialism or communism, y'all, I need you to study Africa. I need you to study who we were before all of this happened so that you know that these are European constructs. And while there is some resonance with how we did things, practically speaking, this ain't it. It just happens to be what we're dealing with right now because we stuck here. We doing with this, and so that's what it is. But when you have a democracy, as opposed to having a king or a queen situation, a democracy is very different. Democracy is messy, right? Because you have to get people to agree. You don't get one person who can just snap their fingers and then that's it. You have to get people to agree in your houses of Congress, at the state level, at the federal level. You got to negotiate. This is why I could never be an elected official. And even though I know it's a whole lot of people who be thinking that I'm trying to come for their seats, I promise you, if I'm criticizing you as an elected official in New York City, I don't want your seat. I just want my people to get what they need. And I don't want to be a judge. I don't want to be an elected official because I can't do all that compromising. I can't do it. I won't do it. And so there are other people for whom that sort of thing is better situated. And I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now. When you have a democracy, what you have to do is figure out how you are going to get the people, because all of the negotiating that has to happen, you want people who are going to, when they are negotiating, center the needs of your community. And what that means is we the voters, we hire elected officials. I'm sorry, that's said incorrectly. As voters, we hire politicians with our votes. Those politicians, once enough of us hire them with our votes, they become elected officials. Those elected officials have options once they are in office. They can either center the needs of the poor and the working class and the people who are not billionaires, or they could center the needs of billionaires. They could center the needs of workers, or they could center the needs of bosses. They could center the needs of the hungry, or they could center the needs of the people who make a whole lot of money robbing you by charging you overextended prices on food that you should not be paying for because it grows in the ground. And so when we hire people with our votes, they get to then sit in a position of deciding so many things. And while I know a lot of people like to focus on the campaign promises, let us be honest, a lot of campaign promises are aspirational. Right? And frankly, let us also be clear, elected officials lie all the time. I sit as a member of the New York State Community Commission on Reparations and Repair. And there are some people in the community who don't like the legislation that our commission has to operate under. And they have said repeatedly at commission hearings, well, we were told y'all could change the legislation. We were told that y'all could change the definitions. I'm sorry you got lied to by politicians, but politicians also lie. And you should know enough about civics to know that people who are not elected officials like me and my fellow commissioners, we don't have the ability to change legislation, baby, because we are not legislators. If you wanted the legislation to say something different, you would have had to get those legislators to write something different. They did not. And so we're stuck with the legislation that they have. This is why civic knowledge is really important, because when you are civically unsophisticated, you will get snookered by lying-ass politicians. And many of them lie. Not all of them, but many of them do. And so when we are thinking about voting, we have to think about who are we going to put into office who is going to center our needs. Because once you get into office, your job is to distribute resources. So who going to get the money for the good schools and the bad schools? Well, what type of politician did you hire? Who going to get the money for the good hospitals and the poorly funded hospitals? Well, when you were hiring politicians, did you hire somebody who used to work for the lobby for healthcare? Or did you hire somebody who was a nurse, for example, who understands what it is when people have needs medically and can't get their needs met? When it comes to whether or not you're going to have roads and bridges, did you hire a politician who was talking about the fact that we need more infrastructure in our community, we need more public transportation? Or did you hire somebody who works for a lobbying corporation who made their entire wealth package out of profiting and advocating on behalf of people who make money from selling roads and bridges and trains and trucks and buses? Elections are very simply opportunities for us to put people in positions of deciding. And when they have to decide, we want to know who you're going to center. And so that's why elections really matter. Now, what we also have to be clear about is that these elections are getting kind of dangerous. I don't know if you all heard Karen Hunter. Karen Hunter had put out a video where she was talking about the fact that she went to vote. And Karen Hunter, of course, of SiriusXM fame, we love her dearly. But she had put out a video today on Instagram where she was talking about the fact that she went to go vote this morning. And she votes in New Jersey, northern New Jersey. We got to talk about New Jersey. She votes in northern New Jersey. And what she said was that when she went to go vote, she was told that there were bomb threats. So I'm going to let you listen to this because this is in New Jersey. This isn't Texas. This is in the deep South. This is Jersey. And I want you to take a listen to this video clip as she's talking about what her experience was at the poll site where she has gone all of her life to vote. Let's take a listen.
Y'all, listen, I went to go vote this morning. I got up early to go to my favorite polling place. I wanted to go on election day. I didn't want to vote early. I wanted my vote to count today. I get there. police around the corner, flashing lights, flashing lights, flashing lights. Bomb threat, bomb threat, bomb threat. I can't vote at my place. So I said, where do I vote? They sent me across town where there are American flags. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm in an area I'm not comfortable with or familiar with. And I got to vote here. I feel like shenanigans. They're trying to steer us into places where possibly, maybe the people there might not count our vote. I don't know what to do. I'm going to wait this out, but I want to vote today. And they sent me to another place, and I don't feel comfortable casting my vote here. I just don't. I don't know these people. I don't know who they are, but I do see a lot of American flags. You understand what I'm saying right now. They're on some bull crap.
Let's pause it there. When you listen to the podcast, which will be out later on today, you'll get to hear the full clip where she talks about the fact that this is very disconcerting. And obviously it is. I had a number of family members who live in New Jersey who went to go vote this morning. And if you don't think everything that matters is on the ballot, everything that matters is on the ballot. Speaking of New Jersey, I know a lot of people might be surprised, but New Jersey is having a gubernatorial election right now between Mikey Sherrill, who is a white woman, and Jack Ciattarelli, who was a white man. Now, Jack Ciattarelli is a whole-ass white MAGA nationalist kind of guy endorsed by Donald Trump, just like Andrew Cuomo. Did y'all know Andrew Cuomo was endorsed by Donald Trump and like all the MAGA Republicans? Isn't it weird? Not so weird, because everybody who funded Donald Trump is basically also funding Andrew Cuomo in New York City. But we'll get to New York City in just a minute. But she goes on to talk about the fact that this was a horrific experience, but New Jersey, which was the state that was the last to abolish enslavement, there's a lot of interesting things happening in New Jersey. And I think this is one of the examples that we can give ourselves for why we should not take anything for granted. You should not assume that you are going to be in a community where basically, just because you're in this community and you think it's all northern New Jersey and you think everybody is, no, it ain't all good. There is a community where some of my family members vote in northern New Jersey, where there is a slate of candidates running for the Board of Elections. One of them is Ann Donahue. And this is a woman who, she and her husband have this big Halloween trick-or-treating thing that they do at their house every year. And in that community, you'll see houses are amazingly decorated. It's a phenomenal experience for the kids who get a chance to go trick-or-treating there. And there's a little black boy, two little black boys, 10 years old, who go up to the door, and it's a demon slayer theme. It's like very well decorated, very demon slasher sort of theme. And one of the little boys is in a slasher demon slayer sort of costume. So he's sort of in the spirit of the moment. And remember, this woman's running for a school board. And he rings the doorbell, and instead of saying trick-or-treat, he says, "Hey, buddy, give me all your candy or I'll slash your throat." And the white man, her husband, who answers the door, basically gets really pissed off at the little boy, kind of rushes them off, says, "You're disrespectful, you're rude," and refuses to give them any candy. The kids are like mad confused. So they leave the porch and they're like, everybody else was getting candy. What happened? Why didn't we get any candy? And so they went and told the parents. At this point, they're crying because they're like, what did we do? Like, why are we getting yelled at by these people? And the parents go to the woman's house to be like, hey, what happened? Our kid was just here trying to get candy. And basically the husband lies and said the kids were cursing. Then we find out the kids wasn't cursing. And he basically didn't want to give these kids the candy. And so the parents are there asking, well, what did you think that was appropriate? Like, basically advocating for their child. And y'all, that woman and her husband called the police on this black family. Now, I don't know if this woman's racist or not. I've never met the woman. I wouldn't be able to pick her out in the lineup. But what I do know is if you are willing to call the police on a black family, when we know you would not be calling the police if this were a white family, because that just don't happen, then you should not be in a position of making decisions for the school board. You should not be in a position of making decisions for any school board, but certainly not one that is integrated and has as many issues with integrating as does this local community. Everything you care about is on the ballot. And then my family members told me when they went to go vote this morning, there were people canvassing outside for different school board members. And they basically, the first person they passed was a canvasser for the school board slate that includes this woman with the last name of Donahue. And the person was like, do you have any questions about the school board elections? And my family members were like, well, what we know is we're not voting for this one because she called the police on a black family. And the canvasser says, we weren't there. We don't really even know what was happening. We shouldn't judge. And my family responded, well, what we do know is that she would not be calling the police if this were a white family. And that's all we need to know to determine whether or not she should be in a position of authority and power making decisions when it comes to local school board decisions. Everything you care about is on the fucking ballot. And New Jersey is not the bastion of democratic principles that you might think it is. Again, last state to abolish enslavement. Let's look at New York City, for example. I mentioned already that Andrew Cuomo has been endorsed by Donald Trump, has been endorsed by a whole bunch of MAGA people. And we've got Zohran Mamdani, who a lot of people voted for in the primary. I hope y'all don't think that man got it in the bag, bag. I would be very happy if he did, quite frankly. I plan to vote for him because, frankly, while I disagree with the number of things that he has done, including bailing on conversations with my team about coming on this show after Clay Kane and after he couldn't handle them questions with Clay Kane, they ghosted. Like it was all good. We were setting it up. And then after Clay Kane asked him some questions about the uncommitted situation, we ain't heard from them people back. Ain't heard from them since. So, yeah, I have issues with that. I have issues with the fact that he says today that he voted for 4 of the ballot proposals that I'm voting no on. We've got 6 ballot proposals in New York City. I'm voting no on every single one of them except number 6. I will be voting yes on number 6 and no on all the rest. So I don't think Zohran Mamdani is a perfect candidate at all. But I do know that he is going to center the needs of poor people when he has to make a decision. And that matters. That really, really matters because we are in a time where people get an opportunity to decide. And since hunger is on the ballot, I need us to take this very, very seriously. Now, no, voting is not going to solve everything. It simply will not. And frankly, it is just one step out of a maybe 10 to 15 step process that goes from recognizing an issue, identifying solutions, finding collaborative voices within the community that agree with the solutions you've identified, getting the solutions implemented. Like there is a multi-pronged process and voting might be one of those. It's just one of those steps, just one. And you only vote once a year. Well, that's not true. You vote twice, in the primary and the general, if you're an active voter. And in New York City, because we got elections every single year, we vote in every 6.5 months. So, baby, can't nobody outdo New York City voters because we vote every 6.5 months. But it matters that you show up, not because a vote is going to make everything perfect, not because you're going to go into the voting booth and cast your ballot and walk out and see Wakanda forever. That ain't how that shit happens. But what you do get an opportunity to do is you create conditions on the ground that are less harmful. This is what we call it harm reduction. You create conditions on the ground that are less harmful so that you can then do the work of building the community that you want to see. And that includes holding your elected officials' feet to the fire. I don't care how many good feelings you got inside over voting for your candidate. You're going to have to see them as opposition once they're in office because you got to force them to do what you want. You got to force them to make the decisions that you want. And that is how you apply pressure. And that's a whole course on civic engagement. I encourage you all to listen to L. Joy Williams every Sunday morning on this channel, channel 126. You can even go to her SundayCivics.com website where you can get back episodes. She literally hands you the maps on how to get this stuff done. So because hunger is political, I want to talk about what's happening with SNAP again. Because on Friday, on Halloween, 2 federal judges told the Trump administration, hey, man, you got to fund this shit. You got to fund the food. You got the money. We know you got the money because not only did you have the money already appropriated, but you also had an emergency fund already appropriated to cover SNAP. And so this would be simple. If this were any other presidency, you get an order from the judge to pay out the SNAP, you pay out the SNAP. But the reality is, and under any other presidency, you would not have had this situation because this is the first time in a government shutdown that SNAP has been used as a negotiating tactic. This is the first time where during a government shutdown where people's hunger has been used to score political points. There are 42 fucking million people who ain't got food today. And we know they ain't got food today because food stamps don't last until the end of the month. They was already hungry last week. And Donald Trump's administration was like, well, you know, we're a little confused about how we're going to pay for all of this. We don't really know. In fact, let me show y'all because sometimes y'all be acting like I'm being hyperbolic, and I don't be hyperbolic. I be right. That's what I be. Look at this, what Donald Trump said. I'm sharing my screen now for those of you who can listen, who can see this on YouTube. Donald Trump says the following after these court orders. Our government lawyers do not think we had the legal authority to pay SNAP with certain monies we have available. Pause. Who the fuck we don't care what your lawyers think. The judge told you to pay the people the food. Pay the people the food. He says, and now 2 courts have issued conflicting opinions on what we can and can't do. They weren't conflicting. They said pay them people the money. I do not want Americans to go hungry just because the radical Democrats refuse to do the right thing and reopen the government. Sorry, who owns the House? That would be the Republicans. Who owns the Senate? That would be the Republicans. Who owns the White House? That would be the Republicans. Didn't y'all just use a nuclear option where you did not have to reopen the government to confirm some of the people that Donald Trump had put forward? Yes, you did. You don't need the Democrats, you bing bang. Sorry, I was going to call him another name that started with B and then it ended up with Bing Bong, which should have been Ding Dong. Anyway, he goes on to say, therefore, I have instructed our lawyers to ask the court to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP as soon as possible. What do you mean? How can you legally fund SNAP? You've got the money, honey. They put it aside. They gave it, you got a whole pot of dollars that will allow you to pay the money. Now, you might be thinking that Lurie's being a little extra, because sometimes y'all be thinking that. I know it. It's all right. It's okay. That's why I got to show y'all my receipts. But what I want you to pay attention to is this clip from Mallory McMurrow, who talks about the fact that they do have the money. They had the money in a pot that they set aside specifically for this purpose. And if you think I'm being hyperbolic, let me go ahead and show you what the tape says. We're going to show this tape in just a minute. Amina, I'm going to pull up the screen so that people can see it, because I don't be hyperbolic. I be right. All right, let's take a listen to Mallory McMurrow.
There are years worth of funding available for the SNAP program, our tax dollars that we have already paid to the federal government to facilitate this program, and the Trump administration deleted this language from the website this morning. They are hiding the fact that not only is there more than enough funding to pay these benefits that we have already paid our tax dollars into, but that there was contingency language to ensure that even in the event of a government shutdown, that SNAP would go uninterrupted.
As there always is.
The Trump administration and the Republicans supporting him are using food as a political weapon. This is a choice. They chose to delete this language. They are choosing to force children to go hungry. We will not stand for that choice, and I encourage a yes vote.
So here we have somebody who gets to decide. And when these people get to decide, they decide to center people who don't need food. They decide, because they're not kings, although they're claiming king power. They get to decide and whether or not they're going to feed people. And they've decided, no, we're not going to feed people. What do you mean you need the court to clarify how you're going to pay the money? Did you need the court to clarify how you're going to pay the $300 million for the ballroom, where you just destroyed the East Wing? How y'all still working on destroying and rebuilding the East Wing when it's a government shutdown? Who's paying them workers? In fact, Donald Trump was so out of touch. The Republicans are so out of touch. He has been now sharing pictures of the marble bathroom that is being installed with all gold plated fake ass accoutrement in the bathroom. He's got pictures of the sliding doors. He's got pictures of the golden toilet. I don't even know if it's golden. I'm being facetious at this point. But he is sharing pictures and images of the remodeled bathroom. They had a Great Gatsby Roaring 20s party over the weekend, where images of just wealthy people basically letting them eat cake their way all the way into Donald Trump's favor. You didn't need court instructions on how to pay $40 million to Argentina. Why you need court instructions on how to pay people who are hungry? Because you're evil. And when you're evil, you make decisions that center other people who are in alignment with your evil. When you are somebody who is in a position of getting to choose the king, because basically that's all elections are. You get to choose who's going to sit in the king's position. And by king's position, I mean the person who will get to sit in a position where they get to decide. Now, I'm going to take it back to New York City really quickly, because there are a lot of people who have said, well, Zohran Mamdani has said that he is going to make this city affordable. Well, he said he is going to freeze the rents. He can't freeze the rents for everybody. He said he's going to make buses free. He can't do that for everybody. He said he is going to, and they go down the list. And then we forget that Eric Adams, because the mayor in New York City gets 9 appointees on a 15-member board that determines rent regulations, and the rent regulations guideline boards is the one that gets to decide whether or not they're going to raise the rents, decrease the rents, or freeze the rents. We forget that in past administrations, rents have been frozen multiple times. And so to suggest that this young man would not be able to freeze the rents for rent-stabilized apartments and rent-regulated apartments, that is false. To suggest that he will not be able to make buses free because it's going to require support from at the state level, does that mean it's impossible? No, it means it's going to be hard. It means it's going to have to be pressure, which is why he has done the work of getting tens of thousands of volunteers who are not just getting out the vote, but who will then be a voice for pressuring Albany and Governor Kathy Hochul to raise the tax rate so that we're at least on par with New Jersey, at least on par with Connecticut, so that we have access to ensuring that buses can be free for people who need them. when it comes to making decisions about trying to create departments of community safety and making sure that we're not over investing in policing, but we're taking the money, because did you know our New York City Police Department has more money in its budget than do small armies of many countries. We got over $11 billion going to the New York City Police Department so they can get robot dogs, right? And so when you have a position where you can reallocate some of that money into a Department of Community Safety so that police can get back to work actually solving crimes, maybe even, dare I say, preventing crimes, while you are investing in all of the resources that are needed to allow communities to be safe, these are things that can happen. But here's the thing. Let's say that every single campaign promise Zohran Mamdani has committed to, let's say they all fail. Let's say he's not successful on a single one. It happens. He is then left with all of the other damn decisions that mayors have to make. Mayors aren't just deciding on things related to their electoral campaigns. Election campaign promises are aspirational. This is the vision for what they want to see in this city. Even if every single one, all 3 or 4, however many campaign promises he ran on, even if he fails at every single one of them, he will be deciding issues that will have a day-to-day impact on all of us. And New Yorkers have to figure out, do you want somebody who is committed to centering the needs of the poor? Do you want somebody who is committed to centering the needs of the most in need when they have to make all of those other decisions? Or do you want somebody like Andrew Cuomo, who's been endorsed by Donald Trump, who's been endorsed by Bill Ackman, the white billionaire who basically ran the first black woman president of Harvard University out of there, who helped to instrumentalize the destruction of critical race theory, the destruction of diversity, equity, and inclusion? Do you want somebody backed by Michael Bloomberg? Do you want somebody like an Andrew Cuomo who became a part of Benjamin Netanyahu's legal defense team after October the 7th of 2 years ago? Because if you want that, and I say this with love, because I got a lot of black pastors, one of whom I respect dearly, who are doing things on Facebook talking about it's not socialism because Zohran Mamdani is a democratic socialist. We need capitalism and freedom. And I'm like, baby, you represent black people who have had their asses handed to them by capitalism. Please don't reveal to us how many payrolls you are on when it comes to your electoral decision making, because you don't even make sense for your own constituency, for your own congregation. Do you want somebody who, when they have to decide, is going to be in the pockets of a Michael Bloomberg, of a Bill Ackman, of a Donald Trump? Because when Donald Trump endorses you, you are in the pocket of Donald Trump. Or do you want somebody, when they have to decide, is going to center the needs of the least of these? I don't want somebody who's going to be so beholden, and frankly, who has a record, Andrew Cuomo does, of policies that have destroyed the black community throughout New York State. As a result of him, 200,000 fewer black families live in the state of New York. As a result of him, the MTA, the train system that we have, robbed of millions of dollars so that he could have pet projects. As a result of him and the fact that he sat on a $20 million bucket of money, dollars that were supposed to be distributed to community-based organizations so that we could get out the census count during the pandemic. He sat on that money until the last goddamn minute after he had me introduce him to the community and vouch for him. So yeah, I take that one really personally. Sat on that money so long, we lost an entire congressional seat because we fell short when it came to our census money. Do you want somebody who, quite frankly, has implemented retirement policies that have had a devastating impact on black workers who are part of unions? Is that what you want? Because when he has had to decide before, look at the decisions that he has made. Elections have consequences. Today is election day. Get your ass to the polls if you have not yet already. There is too much on the line. And frankly, to those of you pastors who are supporting somebody who has that legacy that I just shared, don't be the ones talking about how we are in need when if he wins, when the communities that you represent are the ones suffering the most. Don't be, because I'm going to call you out. I'm going to call you out. I'm going to call you out. I'm going to say your names. I will say names, pastors. So here we are. Hunger is political. Healthcare is political. Education is political. I've given you multiple examples just in this conversation as to how much it matters. Now, when you come out that ballot box, please do not be expecting Wakanda forever. Do not expect to bow and walk into a vibranium-fueled community. What you'll be walking into is a community that is either better prepared or less prepared to do the work of ensuring that our people have their needs met. We are going to leave it there. 866-801-8255. 866-801-TALK is the number. Urban View, we got a lot to get into and some great guests who are going to be on with us today. YouTube, we appreciate y'all. Take your ass to the polls. And if you don't already voted, take some other people's asses to the polls. We ain't got time for this. It's hard enough trying to